Yes, I sold 50% of my portfolio into USDT. You see, the funny thing is that now that crypto is dipping, everybody's telling you we're going to 50K, we're going to 40K. I've been telling you this for the past 2 months. I've said it in my videos and I've said it on my Twitter. If you listened, well done. If you didn't, well, make sure you listen now so you understand what we went through, what the next catalysts are, how the market will react to them, and how you can prepare. Then shortly after the dip, Bitcoin starts going up and everybody says this is the end of the dip, the bottom is in, we're only going up now. You see, what this tells me is that we are in a state of uncertainty, and this shows in the fear and greed index, which is currently neutral. The market doesn't know whether to go up or down, we're just trending sideways. So let's find out exactly what happened and how we got here in the first place. But before we get to any of that, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click that noti bell. Now let's get into the video. So if you all remember, in the beginning of the month, we had this war scare because Iran attacked Israel, retaliating for a previous attack from Israel on Iran. Then Israel retaliated on Iran's attack. However, the damage done to Iran was very minimal, and Iran considered that a win. And of course, the crypto market took a massive hit on the news, retracing with over 18%. However, fears of a wider war have now gone, and although crypto hasn't recovered to the same highs where it all started from, we can see that gold has now started to trend down, reiterating that the situation has calmed down. Then we had the Chinese ETFs, which should have been really bullish for Bitcoin, but that wasn't really reflected in the price. You can see that on the first day of trading, we had 214 million inflow in both the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. Now, if you compare this to the US ETFs, on the first trading day, we had 610 million inflow. However, you have to consider that the Chinese market is a lot smaller than the US market. And not only that, but the Chinese ETFs were only available for Hong Kong residents. Residents in mainland China were not allowed to purchase these ETFs. So when you take all of that into consideration and realize that the Chinese ETFs still reached over 33% of what the US ETFs did on the first day of trading, you should come to the conclusion that this is very bullish for Bitcoin. And yes, it is. However, as I previously said, this was not reflected in the short-term price movement of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Why, you might ask? Well, the reason why is because at that time we had really bad inflation fears, fears of stagflation, and fears of recession. Now, I'm sure you know what a recession is, but you see what stagflation is something even worse than a recession. You see, stagflation is a period of high inflation and low GDP. You already know that the last CPI report came in higher than expected, so inflation is high. However, the recent GDP report came in lower than expected, showing a slowdown in GDP, which provoked all these fears. But then what happened? Well, we had the FOMC meeting last Wednesday, and Jerome Powell, who's the chair of the Fed, completely took out any fears of recession, stagflation, or high inflation. Now, he did acknowledge that we had a bad inflation quarter. However, he said that usually in the second half of the year is when inflation starts to slow down. So the whole FOMC meeting was really bullish, and crypto started to rally up. Then we had the jobs data, and the US economy added 175,000 jobs, which is lower than expected. The expected number was 245,000. Now remember that the Fed in the US has a dual mandate. They need to keep inflation low, and they need to keep employment rate high. This slowdown in jobs and increase in unemployment rate shows that the labor market has started to slow down. And this is not what the Fed wants. Just for reference, the unemployment rate increased from 3.8 to 3.9 last month. Now, although this is really bad for the economy, it's really good for risk assets like Bitcoin. Why? Because the Fed is now pricing in 2 rate cuts, one in September and one in December. Before this meeting, the Fed was only pricing in 1.2 rate cuts for the year. We're now pricing in 2. So we're not having a war. The China ETF started out strong. The FOMC meeting was overall bullish. We had a bad jobs data, and we're now pricing in 2 rate cuts. All of this created a very bullish momentum for Bitcoin, and Bitcoin started rallying up. And everyone on crypto Twitter started shouting from their rooftop that the bottom is in. This is all nice and all. However, the next CPI report is coming in on the 15th of May. And it's not a report on May, it's a report on April. Now, April is still within the first half of the year. We've still got May and June. And if you remember what Jay Powell said, he said that inflation starts to slow down in the second half of the year. Now, what are the chances that the inflation report in May comes in higher than expected? Well, I'd say pretty high. If this happens, the risk assets and crypto will react very negatively to that report. And this is exactly why I would consider the CPI report coming on May 15th the next catalyst for the crypto market. The catalyst after that will come on May 23rd. And yes, this is the deadline for the Ethereum ETF in the US, which is 80% going to get denied. Now, let's not forget about the Wells notice that both Uniswap and Consensus received. If you don't know, Uniswap is the main DEX for Ethereum, and Consensus is the company that built MetaMask, which is the main wallet for Ethereum. 80% of Wells notices end up with a lawsuit. So it's very easy to say that we can potentially expect lawsuits against Uniswap and Consensus after the Ethereum ETF denial. And of course, the crypto world will fight back, just like Consensus are fighting back, and they've recently went into Texas and filed a lawsuit against the SEC, asking them to confirm that Ethereum is not a security. Now, something interesting that came in from those filings is that the SEC chair Gensler believed Ethereum was a security for at least a year. The revelation comes following the filing of an unredacted complaint against the agency by Ethereum software company Consensus. The company filed the redacted version of the lawsuit in a Texas federal court last Thursday in response to a so-called Wells notice it received detailing the SEC's plans to sue the firm for failing to comply with federal securities laws. So Gary Gensler has considered Ethereum a security for over a year and has not said anything about that publicly. And it's not just Gary that thinks so. I'm going to play you a clip from Michael Saylor expressing that he also believes Ethereum, Ripple, Cardano, BNB are all securities.
And when Ethereum is not going to be approved, sometime this summer, it'll be very clear to everyone that Ethereum is deemed a crypto asset security, not a commodity. After that, you're going to see that Ethereum, BNB, Solana, Ripple, Cardano, everything down the stack is just a crypto asset security unregistered. None of them will ever be wrapped by a spot ETF. None of them will be accepted by Wall Street. None of them will be accepted by mainstream institutional investors as crypto assets.
So the short-term outlook is not great for crypto. This is exactly why I sold 15% of my portfolio into USDT. Now, this is not to say that crypto is going down to zero. No, not at all. However, we are going to have a lot of fear in the markets. And you might think that this is bad, but actually, this is very, very good because we need that extreme fear for us to continue going up. And what this extreme fear will do for us is it will give us an excellent opportunity to buy lower all the coins that we love. This is how I'm preparing. I've already sold, so I can buy lower when those low prices come in. Now let's go over to the Bitcoin chart so I can explain to you what I mean. You see, I'm planning to be fully allocated by the end of June because in my opinion, both peak fear and the bottom will come in by the end of June or shortly after. And this is because after each halving, Bitcoin usually goes on a sideways channel for 3 months or more. This is the halving in May 2020, and you can see that Bitcoin, although going on an upwards channel, it was more like a sideways channel because price didn't really do anything. You see, only after Bitcoin broke through this channel, Bitcoin went all the way up to 64K, which is a 4.5x from the point of breakout. Now, if we go back to the channel, we can see that price stayed in this channel from May 11th all the way to 5th of November, which is 6 months. Now, you can see that price started at 8.5K and broke out at 14K. So we still went up, just not by any significant amount. Now, the reason why I said 3 months is because if we put a line across here and zoom in, you can see that Bitcoin really struggled to break through that level and only broke through at the end of July, which is roughly around 3 months from May. After breaking through, price went up 26%, then back down to test that previous level and continue trending up, eventually breaking through the channel. Now back to the halving that just happened. If we are to continue this downwards channel and follow the same pattern that happened last halving, we should expect to see some sort of breakout in July. Just to visualize this channel a little bit better, I'll put the upper band in as well. And what I can see here is two options. Option number one is price continues going up on this bullish momentum, sweeping above these highs over here, doing something really quick like that, hitting the upper band of the channel as well, then continuing to trend down, going into this area, sweeping below these highs here, just like so, and then trending back up. Option number two is price coming straight down, consolidating in this area for a little while, sweeping down the highs, and then starting to trend back up. Now, of course, these are not the only two options and anything can happen in crypto, but these are the only two options that I see right now. Because unless price gathers more momentum coming down, sweeping these lows, I really can't see it breaking through all-time highs. Now, of course, anything can happen, and if we have a really good CPI report, a really good inflation report, then crypto will start spiking back up. But even then, it will have some sort of retracement on the Ethereum ETF denial. And if the Ethereum ETF gets accepted, then all bets are off and the only way is up. And of course, I'll make sure I update you if my thesis changes. For the time being, I'll leave this chart as it is and we'll see if it plays out or not. Now, moving on to the USDT dominance chart. And what this chart does is it tells you what part of the money in the crypto market are held in USDT. If we have a high USDT dominance, it means that less people are buying actual crypto coins. And if we have low USDT dominance, it means that most people are buying crypto coins. So this is the current halving, but if we go back to the previous halving, we can see that when USDT dominance was really low, so around April 21, is when Bitcoin was at its highest, around April 21. Similarly, when USD dominance went back up, around June, July 2021, at the same time, Bitcoin had a significant retracement. Knowing this, we can now use the USDT dominance chart to predict when to sell and when to buy. So if we go back to the chart, we can see that around March, April time is when USDT dominance bottomed and since then has started trending up. This means that around that time was the best time to sell. And if we look at Bitcoin's price around that time, you can see that we were right at the top. Now I'll be watching this chart very closely and try to predict where it will top out. In my opinion, this will be around this red area over here. I can't predict exactly when this would happen and nobody can, but my expectations would be somewhere between June and September. And September is actually a very important month because it coincides with the time that the Federal Reserve is expected to cut rates. And of course, shortly after the chart tops out, we can expect another leg down and another all-time high for Bitcoin. And although I've drawn an area I can expect the price to bottom out, this is not financial advice and nothing is for certain. For example, price can bottom out somewhere along this trend line over here and never reach these lows. Regardless of when or where it bottoms, this is the best chart you can use to predict Bitcoin tops and bottoms. Okay guys, with this we've come to the end of the video and you know exactly how I'm preparing for the upcoming fear in the market. If you like the information I provide to you, please make sure you subscribe and you follow me on Twitter at Alex Yanakov. Goodbye and see you in the next one.